All right, let's try that again. I had some trouble with the connection, but here we are. Good morning, good evening, Instagram. I'm being joined by Stephanie Somatics in a second, and we're gonna talk about all things about body work, why it's important to drop into the body, why we want to include our bodies when we're dealing with traumas, when we're dealing with our emotions. So we're going to have a juicy talk in the topic of somatic work and the power of it. So let me ask Stephanie to join. Let's see. Just a second while Instagram does its magic. All right, here we are. I'm accepting. And there she is. I'm so happy.
Amazing. Hello,
Just a few
hello.
few technical difficulties, but here we are, and I'm happy to have you here. Hi, Stephanie. I'm so
Hi,
excited.
Gerly. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Right? It's like, oh my God, this is totally my jam, and I'm getting excited every time that somebody gives me an opportunity to
Yeah.
speak about somatics. So, hi everybody. Stephanie is joining me today, and we are, as I mentioned briefly, talk about somatics. So, I just maybe let's just start with like briefly, like how did you find your way into somatics? Because as I know that you are also a psychologist, and like it's often that we want to talk about our problems, also good things. But how did you really find your way into the body and into the somatics?
Absolutely. I think like so many of us that find ourselves.
Oh shoot, is it my internet? All right, all right. Let's see if the internet is making and doing its thing today
We're
with us.
back.
Are you back? Oh my God. Okay, awesome. I was like, is it my internet? Is zero?
I know.
Let's see.
It's always a bit of a dance, but okay, so really like so many of us that find ourselves gravitating towards these healing modalities, we're called to them because something in our life isn't working. Something is wrong, and we are using all the tools we have at our disposal to make the changes we can. But I've been to different coaches, different therapists, read the books, and was still in my own cycle, could identify, sure, this is probably about my relationship here. This is probably about my experience there, but it didn't change the way that my body would feel when the trigger would come up, when the pattern would happen. And it was really this experience of something is missing. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, for a while, it did create this feeling of like, what am I doing wrong? And finding somatic approaches for me was this like light bulb of like, oh, there was something missing. There is actually an entire part of your being that wasn't being talked about.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's such a beautiful thing that you're pinpointing it, because a lot of my clients as well, that they have like kind of like found their way into the whole somatic field. They're like, I've been doing this work, I've been like reading the books, I've been gaining so much awareness, I've been talking about like where my triggers are coming from, what traumas do I have, but like something is not clicking in. Like for some reason I'm like still like in this cycle, and even though I'm so aware of it, I cannot like kind of, I'm not able to step out of it.
Yeah.
So I think it's such a beautiful thing to become aware that, yeah, like we can talk and we can think and we have this really powerful machine up in here, but also we
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of things stored in here. So how can we find our way into it and into a body that can feel a little bit scary to get into, right?
Yes.
Because we have not, we're such great thinkers, but we might lack the knowledge of how to feel things, right? So it's like, let me just like move up here,
Yes.
and then just trying to figure out here, because that is the part that I can feel in control of. And in
Yeah.
here it's like out of control and it's uncomfortable and I don't like it. And so, right, and so have you experienced it as well, that like a lot of us are overthinkers, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what is in your experience, why is it like, why do we move up into our head? What's the dealio with overthinking?
Well, I think really, I always love connecting with other somatic folks because, gosh, I do the same movement all the time when describing what is happening for folks. It really is just some of where we are culturally in the world. When psychology came onto the scene with Freud and then Jung, it was about thinking, and it was really about the way that the predominant group of psychologists, a very white male population, was perceiving, right? It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily the only thing that was happening, but the perception of, oh, this is what was happening really overlaid kind of the approach for a long time. But that was not always the only approach to healing modalities. When we go actually further back in time and look at different indigenous wisdom traditions, different Eastern methodologies, different practices really from across the world, there were many, many cultures, many people who really saw the body as just an equal participant in the conversation. Yes, you could think and figure things out, but you could also feel and figure things out. These are both tools. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that you said, this is such a powerful machine. It absolutely is. Ooh, it absolutely is. We have a little rain in my area. We've been getting some power surges. Sorry about that. But
No, it was, I think it was like a beautiful synchronicity. It was like, oh, it's so powerful. It's like
my
lights are.
house agreed with me. Yeah, exactly. That it really is a powerful tool in that way. Your brain is important. It is incredible that you can connect the dots like this. And so is your body. So this question of, why do we lean towards the mind? I think it is important to note the cultural component, the way that the general population conceptualizes it, which is typically the way then we are taught it from
Yeah.
our family of origin. But in addition, this fear piece that you spoke to, it is scary to go into the body because it is a little amorphous and intangible. I can't see it and I can't touch it. So it's this sort of murky, vague zone. And that is scary. If you think about it like a room that you can't see very well, there's things in there. Some of them are gonna like reach out and like make contact with you. That does sound,
Mm-hmm.
very scary and alarming. And so I think it's really important for folks who are leaning into this work to know that the pace that you're going is actually okay for your
Mm-hmm.
nervous system. Being where
Yeah.
you are is actually one of the most important pieces of this work.
Yeah. It's such a like a I think it's such a liberating thing to realize that, oh, I can have the permission to go slow.
Yeah.
I can go as quickly as the slowest part of me feels safe to go.
Yes.
And I think it's such a I think I love the way that you approached it, that like that overthinking part also comes from the society, and how it is a masculine way, like our society, that like the Western society is a very, like, in that sense, a masculine approach, right? Like linear, rational. And so
Yeah.
we would like to it would be so easy to be able to think ourselves out from the emotional part, but emotions often are not rational. So
Yeah.
how to kind of combine those two, right? So
Mhm.
um and in addition, like, all the emotions are stored in the body, like they
Mm.
are not happening here, right? We want to have the awareness and the language perhaps to kind of speak them out, but finding that way, that pathway, how to sit and be comfortable within your own body, is
Mm.
such a profound thing. And I love also, like, I know that you have touched this so many times on your feed as well, that the goal is not to become this enlightened being that doesn't get triggered,
Mhm.
or like we should somehow disregard our humanness around it. It's not about that. Being emotionally mature and comfortable in your skin and in your body doesn't mean that you're not going to get activated by life around you, but it's more about how can we integrate those triggers, how can we lean in, how can we hold that humanness, how can we
Mhm.
ride those waves, and it's all about that. So kind of like leaning into what the trigger is here to tell me, because the only thing in my control is is me,
Mhm.
like how I'm responding, because I cannot fight and try to control and manage everything around me and outside of me. This is going to drain us, right? And
Yeah.
so how can I find that peaceful state within myself, and then how can I understand what is actually like reacting right now? What is it in me that wants to be seen,
Mm.
right? And how can I now see it? So what are some of the things that you like um, love to teach your clients when it comes to being able to face and see what is coming up?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that phrasing of how do we face it and also
Hmm.
welcome it, because
Yeah.
I think really my belief is that part of the difficulty we have in overcoming or in changing is because we don't have a relationship with these parts. If anything,
Yes.
actually, that part is knocking on the door saying, I need to come in, I need to come in. And we're holding the door. Nope, nope, not going to
Yeah.
let you in. And
I'm,
so
I'm,
it
I'm
won't
scared of
go
you. I'm
away.
afraid of you. I don't
Yeah.
want to hear anything about you. Yeah.
It can't get in the door, so it's coming to a window. It's going around to the back. It's tunneling underneath. Like it will find a way, this part
Hmm.
of you. And the more that we, board up our home in an attempt to not let this part in, the harder it's going to try. And I think this is really where we see, folks having like a big breakdown moment. My autoimmune disorder is out of control. My eating disorder is just off the charts. I can't maintain a healthy relation. It always comes to this sort of catalyst. And I think the hardest part is this moment of, yeah, yeah, we have to let it in the house a little bit.
Hmm.
And this piece we're speaking to about going slowly. Maybe it doesn't come and sit in the living room. Maybe it doesn't stay, but can we open the door and have a chat on the porch? Can we at least look out the window and crack the window a little bit? Just
Hmm.
to let it know I hear
Hmm.
you. I'm not ready for you, but I hear you.
Yeah.
And so there are so many, and I know I'm using a lot of metaphor as I describe this, but it really is about taking these concepts and then creatively adapting them to
Yeah.
fit where we are. And I think that really the relationship piece is the biggest concept that I want to teach folks. The way that you and your body relate to one another, I want the two of you to relate like your body has been personified, almost like it's another individual. Just in the
Hmm.
way that if your best friend calls you, sends you a text message, shows up at your house unannounced without actually asking any additional information, you have a sense. You can guess what's going on because you're already so attuned to that person. You know them so well that the way that they sit, the amount of eye contact they make, whatever it is, you know them enough to go, I could guess. I could guess pretty well.
Yeah.
And if I don't, again, the relationship is there. I would sit down on the couch, okay, something is happening. Walk me through it. What's going on? And I would want to lean in. But in order to do that, this concept of the best friend, we do have to befriend the body. And
Hmm.
that is hard because, again, this idea of the dark room, it is scary. There is stuff in there. And, really, all the way circling back to this initial idea of your body and your brain are tools. Your body is just an information source.
Hmm.
It's a tool just like all the abilities your brain has,
Yeah.
and it's not that one is more right than the
Hmm.
other.
The
But
language is different.
yes, the language is different. Exactly, exactly. And so I just need to become bilingual in this new language
Yeah.
so that I can get this additional information. One of the big reasons I see people coming to me to do the somatic work is I had an experience and my brain said, there's nothing wrong. Why are we freaking out?
Hmm.
But my body said, oh, we are freaking out. Something is very wrong. And again, there's this idea, okay, both are information sources. We need to befriend both to understand what, like, your team, this is your
This
team.
is
Your
your
team
team.
is, yeah, you've got two coaches and they are giving you different information, but to really,
Hmm.
play this game with integrity and with clarity, with a sense
Hmm.
of ease, we do have a little powwow. You got to sit down all together.
Yeah, and like be the team leader that your team needs, because oftentimes I
Mm,
think we have taken a step back and we have allowed those like team members to kind of do their own thing. Like we all are kind of going in the same direction, right? We want our own well-being to be the priority,
yeah.
but every team member sees the thing through their own lens. And now when we are not there to kind of like find a common ground, then they all kind of, you know, they're going to lean and push and like go towards different directions. And
Uh-huh.
then we're here. It's like, I don't understand what's going on and why my team is like, you know, in this place. And
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that you brought in all of those metaphors, because this is something that I use in my work as well. And I think it's a beautiful thing that allows our mind to understand what's going on, right? Because we're like, oh, okay, like if I can relate to this, because I can understand, you know, like this metaphor of like somebody knocking on the door and I'm like afraid of opening it, but yet I'm doing it the very same process inside of me without actually acknowledging it. So I think there's so much power in explaining and describing these things through these very, in that sense, simplistic examples that our brain can comprehend. And it's exactly that, right? Like all different body parts are communicating to us constantly, but they just have different language, right? The mind is speaking through thoughts, the body through emotions, and then we have this deeper soul aspect that kind of like speak to us through this gut feeling, this intuitive wisdom. And if we're not attuned to listen to all three of them, they can get, you know, like it's just going to be like a mixture of chaos that we don't actually understand, like where certain things are coming from and what do we actually need to listen, because not all thoughts are true, not all emotions need to like necessarily be true in that sense. Like they are true, they're valid, they're happening, but the message that they're carrying might be an old message from the past and not a reaction to what's actually happening in the present moment. So once we start to become aware of like, oh, okay, my team can have this way of like being hijacked into a past project that is still unresolved and that is keeping me finding my ground in the present moment, right? So how can I be a loving team member and actually learn and have this healthy relationship with my team, because so many people want to trust themselves, to like, you know, lean in and yeah, like to truly trust. But in order to trust, you need to know the
Yeah.
other person, right? So we need to get to know each other ourselves, because it's so easy to, you know, like if a person comes up to you next to your, you know, street and says like, hey, I'm really trustworthy and, you know, like just you can lean on to me,
Yeah.
and you're like, let's do this, and you're just like, okay, that's nice, but
Yeah.
I kind of need for you to prove your, you know,
Yes.
your words with your actions. So having that patience with yourself, having that loving, nurturing kindness when it comes to dealing with all of this, and like understanding that, oh, okay, I think I have so much still to learn about this human being. So how can I best do that? And maybe there is people, maybe there is communities, maybe there is some sort of tools that I can acquire along the way so that I don't need to figure it out on my own. Right. So that's when I feel comes the power of like working with another, either a group of people or a professional, or maybe you have a really good friend who's really attuned and can like mirror and reflect back that to you. Because another thing that we have as mammals, as humans, as you know, these advanced beings, is that we can attune our nervous systems,
Yeah.
right? So
Absolutely.
can you elaborate a little bit to our audience, to people who are tuning in? And by the way, like people who are just like coming in and you kind of have sparks are flying and you want to learn or know a little bit more about this, or you have like a personal question of like, oh, but how do I kind of like, how do I apply it in here? Then feel free to send the questions using that little question mark button. That way we can come back to them and they don't get lost in the comments. But yeah, let's talk
Yes.
about a little bit about like this
Yes.
attunement
Well,
piece.
I love the attunement piece. I think it's really what allows us to do work as one-on-one facilitators. You know, if I am not physically, literally next to you, how could I feel you? Right? I think that's often a question I hear from folks. And that is the cool part of human attunement. And we see this, you know, across the board in the research and generations through different cultures, that humans have the capacity to tune in, right? That's what attuning really is about, is tuning into the other person's experience. And we can do
Mm-hmm,
this through empathy, we can do this conceptually, but we also do this energetically. And
mm-hmm,
this is where somatics really has that sort of magical feel, because you can be sharing an experience this is where I was, this is what was happening. And if I am tuned into my body as you're tuning into yours and sharing, I often will go, wow, as you're sharing the experience, I feel this sense of like tightness in my chest, maybe like a heaviness in my belly. And I'll have a client go, how, yes, yes, that's exactly what it feels like. And that is where we see attunement feeling just incredibly magical as a tool set. But it also, comes back to a very basic neurological skill that we have as humans in order to raise children. When a baby smiles, you smile. When the baby cries, automatically your face goes, oh, we mirror. It's our mirror neurons. I was just on a plane recently and the person across from me in the airport yawned and I immediately wanted to yawn. They did this with their neck and I felt my body want to then mirror right away because this was the person I was looking at. And my body said, if they do it, I do it. Very Simon Says. And it's how we on a, biological, neurochemical level are tuning into one another. When I smile, you smile. When you laugh, I laugh. When you cry, I cry with you.
Yeah.
And this is how we can help do reparenting work in our adult years if we did not get the attunement we needed as children.
Yeah.
So, what you're speaking to also really touches into attachment theory. To have relationships is, we all want to be working towards that secure attachment, but it's not to say that secure attachment is perfection. Secure attachment actually is defined by something very different. You gain secure attachment through rupture and repair. That's the recipe.
Exactly. Rupture,
Yes.
repair. And that's the thing.
Yes.
Like it's not about being a perfect parent. It's not about making mistakes. It's about how do you repair those mistakes and how can you once again that relationship, how can this be built in a solid ground so you know that, oh, actually mistakes are part of the journey. It matters what I do after that. Like how can I apologize? How can I repair? How can I be still there as a person so we don't develop this, like this anxious or avoidance part where it's like, oh my God, I'm so, I need to be perfect in order for you to stay here because I'm literally afraid that you're gonna leave if I'm not perfect, or it's too much, right? And so I'd rather keep my distance because I have not experienced that healthy. I have my own space. I can be my own person while still having a healthy relationship. Yeah,
it is really
is
powerful. And I think, if we even take it out of the other relationship into our relationship with self, how do you respond to you when something is wrong?
Yeah.
When your stomach hurts, you have had a bad day. What are your behaviors? And this, I think, is where, we really get to take the homework home. It's not just actively with others, and that can be difficult in itself, but how do you take care of you when your system has said, I've had a bad day? Are you giving yourself space to vent, to take a breather, to take a walk, to get, nourishment in the ways that you're needing? Because I think really we are culturally also really encouraged to be outwardly focused. How do other people perceive you? What do other people need from you? How can I engage so that other people see value in me? And when we start to really develop and cultivate this inner spring, is what I like to call it, we actually end up nourishing more people in our life because our spring overflows. It is abundant. That riverbed, has otters and reeds, and there is an entire ecosystem that we create because we tend our spring, and all the people in your life will be hydrated. They will walk their way here. They will take what they need, and which is very different than this idea of needing to run and give the water, give to make sure everybody else is okay. When we tend our spring, actually everybody else flourishes with us.
Yeah, like to have even that practice, that the fact that you notice to ask yourself like, oh, okay, what do I need right now, right? Like because and that's where I feel like this disconnect from the mind and the body kind of comes in, because the mind is like in a very straightforward linear of like, oh my God, no, the clock is this, or you haven't done your to-do list, and like keep pushing through and then keep doing this, and what's the big dealio? And the body is like, I cannot exactly to come back to the example that you brought, right? Like, it's like the mind is saying like, why are you overreacting? Everything is fine, everything is cool, but the body is reacting, right? So yeah, it's, I think the relationship part can be used in like so many areas in our lives, with the relationship that we have with ourselves, with our emotions, with our thoughts, and then all the other elements in the outside world, and it all comes down to relationship. And I think it's such a beautiful thing, because the relationship is like, it's a relational thing, but it doesn't only have to be me and something else. It can be me with
Yeah,
me, and that's,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, it is also really, um, interesting to see the difference in the cultural perspective of it. The Western belief is very individuated, whereas
Hmm.
the Eastern is much more community based. And I
Yeah.
really do think it is like so much of what we talk about is balance. This
Hmm.
classic, both are true, and how do I move through it in the way that aligns with me most? It's not that we only want to focus on the body and neglect the head. It's not that we only want to focus on the brain and neglect the body, but rather both are equal players, on this team, and our
Yeah.
community and our individual work go hand in hand. Sometimes I
Hmm.
hear folks saying, well, maybe I need to take a break. Maybe I need to just like stop having the human contact. Maybe I need to slow down dating. Maybe I need to take less time with my friends, focus less on them. And for, each individual, it really is, a little bit different. In doing so, are you isolating?
Hmm.
Are you avoiding? Are you actually developing more unhealthy patterns
Yeah.
by resisting the challenges that do come with relationship? Because, we can do all of the work by ourselves. We can go to all the practices, take all the courses, but if we don't have the skill set to deal and tolerate the experience of discomfort that inevitably happens in relationship,
Yep.
then we live on a remote island by ourselves for the rest of our lives, and we don't get the richness, the depth. There is just a different layer of safety and trust
Yeah.
that we get when we do the relational work, because we as humans are pack beings.
We are.
Your ability to attune and empathize and resonate with people is not there on accident. It's a very crucial part of your life experience.
And it can be a very powerful part. And oh my God, there was so much that you said that I was like think, 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 because uh because it's like, uh, um yeah, the relational thing with the other people, and it's yeah, like, one part that you said was that like we can do this work on our own, and like noticing about like, okay, like I'm isolating, like, do, like, first of all, where is it coming from? Is it coming from a loving
Yes.
place, or is it coming because I want to protect myself from something?
Mhm.
And I think there's like two parts. One is like, yes, we need to be able to be comfortable on our own, do the work on our own, be like in this peaceful place, and dealing and gaining awareness of our traumas and our emotional, like whatever is keeping us stuck or is still like hurting us. But a lot of those things have come through relations, like relationships, so they are relational traumas. So no matter how much I will concentrate and heal it in isolation with myself, the best practice then is to go out there and actually put it into practice. So actually, the most powerful way how we heal those wounds is still through relationships. So you can work it, and it's advice, like I say, like, go for it, like do the work on your own, meet those parts, get to know yourself, because what trauma does is that it disconnects us from ourselves, so we want to have regain that connection. But initially, those relational wounds get to heal the most profound way through healthy relationships. And
Yeah,
so
and
I
I
think
think
it's,
healthy
yeah,
is the key
yeah,
word there, because I think
yeah,
sometimes people say, I am doing the work and I'm still not connecting with my partner. I'm still
yeah,
feeling rejected. I actually feel worse now than I did before
yeah,
I did the work. And I just want to note, being able to identify this person is safe is part of the individual work that
yes,
prepares us to do relational work,
yeah,
right? To tolerate being triggered by
exactly,
somebody, and the safety first starts with us, so that if my partner is having an experience, my children are throwing a tantrum, I
yep,
am able to create my own container of resource within myself first,
yep,
and then either connect or I don't feel able to do this right now. I don't feel respected here. I actually need to take a breather for a moment, and then stepping away. And it's the inner safety that then allows us to be safe with others. You know, it is really like
Yes,
intertwined, I think is the word I'm looking for.
it is. And safety
Yes.
is such a key feature when it comes to like doing the somatic work in and of itself and just healing the traumas, because initially what has been created through those multiple experiences through our, childhood or earlier in life, is that at one point we stopped feeling safe, and we stopped
Yes.
feeling safe in the body, like internally,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
The body almost became like this overwhelming place where we maybe feel helpless or out of control, and we don't know how to hold this, so we're like, not safe to be here. Let me be here. Let me try to control and manage and, think myself through this, because it's not safe. I don't feel safe to feel those emotions. I don't feel safe to perhaps express my boundaries. I don't feel safe to be authentically myself because there has been a rupture that hasn't been repaired yet.
And the rupture you're describing is a relational rupture. And
Mm-hmm.
typically, something in that relationship is about the container, whether it is a parent who says, stop it, you're fine. Don't do that here. That's not appropriate. Or a teacher who scolded you, whatever the
Mm-hmm.
circumstance was. You know, it's really important to note when we're children, we don't have the capacity to regulate ourselves. That's
Yeah.
something we develop later on. And so we actually borrow the regulatory system of the adults in the room, the adults
Yes.
around us, whether that's
Mm-hmm.
caregivers or parents or siblings, whoever it is. We literally can't
We
as
can't.
kids. It's
We
not in
don't
our,
have the skill. The nervous system is not
exactly.
there, right?
No.
And
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 so
and yeah.
when we then experience the dysregulation in adulthood, that tells me when they're saying, well, they aren't making me feel safe, I go, "Ooh, that's your child. That's your inner child. Your
Because
adult
as children,
self." Yeah.
yeah, as children we are egocentric, right? We
Yes.
don't have
Yes.
that perspective of like, oh, this person is behaving that way, or they're telling me that because of their own thing. It's like,
And
no,
we
it's
shouldn't
everything
think,
about me.
yes,
Yeah,
and we
but
should be that way.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the key part, and that's, I think it's a powerful thing, that it was like, oh, okay, I'm like expecting this person to make me feel like in this way. It's like, yeah, because it's coming from that child part of you
Yeah.
that still relates to things that it is revolving around me. And then like in, I'm not saying it in a bad way, but children, just like the way that we perceive the world is in a very egocentric way, because it's like, and that's the thing, like we make things mean about ourselves, and that's
Yeah.
where our relationship with ourselves now comes in, right? Because something happens, is not, it's not because they have their own issues. No, it probably is because I did something wrong, or I
Yeah.
wasn't enough, or you know it was
Right.
something about what I did, what I didn't
Yes.
do, or who I am.
Right. We could
um
really attribute that to a developmental stage, right? I like to
mhm
sometimes describe it when, we as humans first discovered stars and planets, we thought the Earth was the center. We said
mhm
we must be the beginning. And of course we think that way.
mhm
That is how nature has designed our biological system. And so at the discovery of something, we must be the center of it in order to understand how we are to exist within it. It isn't until we grow up, we gather more information, we have a wider lens, we literally can see more. Think about how when you play peekaboo with kids, the
mhm
reason they're surprised every time you've reappeared behind your hands, you and I know you didn't go anywhere, but for kids, the part of their brain that has perception is a developmental stage. They do think you've disappeared. They're like, that person is gone. They don't have the
mhm
capacity to see that part. And so
and
this
then to
inherent,
regulate
yes,
themselves.
yes, and regulate themselves. And so it is not a bad thing when we have that response as adults, but
Yeah,
rather just a cue. Oh, your inner child is still waiting for that need to be met. And that is where the individual work comes in.
yeah, because you can reparent yourself.
Yes,
And
yes,
then as a healthy, loving parent, you can also address like, where are my boundaries? Where do I
mm,
like,
yeah,
where do I stuck and then like see it through and then be there? And where can I like take upon a decision that, hey, this is not a healthy environment.
yes,
This is not for my highest good. So
mm,
I'm like, I don't need to suffer through this. Right.
yeah,
I have
yeah,
a couple of good questions
yes.
um, Country Sleep asks, let's see, where do we get started with somatic work?
Oh, I love this question. Do you want to give a little sprinkle and I'll follow up, or?
Sure. Uh, well, for me, like the first thing that I would say is that firstly, you just have that awareness of like, oh, there's something more, there's something bigger that it is the mental layer, but I understand that it's like the first steps up the staircase, right? I've like taken them and like, but it's like, okay, something something something's got to give, like there needs to be something more. So I would firstly say that you just gain awareness of that there is a possibility to go deeper, and you feel the urge to kind of lean into it. You get interested in like, oh wait, what is this thing, let me go into it. So you have enough of awareness and open mindedness to go and lean into and learn a little bit more. So yeah, you can take
Yeah,
the spin from that.
absolutely. Well, I think what I really hear you noting, the theme there is curious. I
Mm-hmm.
am curious. And that is where I always encourage folks to start. Just get more information. You don't need to jump all the way, into the deep end of the pool. If anything, I would rather you learn how to swim first. And and learning how to swim takes time.
Yeah.
We need to understand humans float. This is how they float. This is how you blow bubbles. There's so many little steps. And
Yeah.
so just gaining more information, whether that be through books, through podcasts, through folks like you and I,
Mm-hmm.
let's just get more information to normalize. Yeah, this is a thing that your body naturally does. And
Mm-hmm.
from there, you can start going, okay, and how does my body do that? How can I notice my body and move through there? And the
Yeah.
curiousness, I think, is really our guiding light through somatics from beginning to end.
Yeah. And like firstly, yeah, I so agree. Like be curious. Like start asking curious, like actual curious questions, and inquire about yourself. And then like the somatics is all about not only in theory that okay, yeah, I understand, or like this is how my nervous system does or works or whatnot, and start to put these things into practice. And with somatics, as we have like chammed here as well, that we have this great skill to attune. Don't be afraid to reach out and find the right kind of like a person that you resonate with or a group, and start to just like piece it together, right? There's so many ways to just do like a somatic releasing, like body work, breath work, yoga, movement, dancing. Like there's ways to deal and like work with the body. But what I really love about the work that we do is that we incorporate like the awareness, the language, the vocabulary with the somatic. So we can like put those two pieces together. It's not only about like the way that I view it is there is this root reason, this stuck energy, this something that is keep knocking on your door, and that's kind of the root of the plant, right? And then there's the tree trunk, there's the leaves, there's all of these things that can now visually and physiologically, emotionally, psychologically appear in your system. So when we only do the body work with like heavier, deeper traumas, and we don't address the root, we just like kind of like have the release. We can have a sense of calm in a little for a little while, but then the root comes, it starts sprouting again. So what happens when we also address the root is that we can give it space. Like we can become aware, we can face it, we can feel it, and we can really free it,
Yeah.
right? Face it, feel it, free it. So in that sense,
Mm.
you give that root, like you can heal that on a root level. So and it depends like what are you dealing with, right? Sometimes the body just holds some sort of attention, and you can gain so much benefit from just moving your body and like having that release and like having that calmness, going for a walk. But when it comes to dealing with those deeper roots that we're still carrying, I think it's such a profound way to heal that, when we're addressing and when we're actually gaining awareness, and then yeah, being able to put maybe into words something that is almost undescribable, or that we haven't had the words beforehand, right? So this is where I feel like the power really lies doing this work.
Yeah, I love hearing we use the same metaphors. I also say it's really about the root. And when we are only addressing the symptoms, it's like we have a weed in our garden and we're using scissors to just cut
Mm-hmm.
off the top of the weed. It's going to keep
Mm-hmm.
growing until you are get in the dirt, dig on down and actually pull that out of the ground.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so that leads us to Olive is asking, how do you know if somebody's ready for this work?
Wow, I love this question because I think this is actually really important because I do not think that somatics is always the first step for everyone.
Yeah.
I think actually this, especially in my practice, I I am not the first line of defense anymore. I really
Yeah.
used to believe that everyone needed somatics, everyone should have it immediately.
Yeah.
And the more that I've worked in the field, the more I've really found that um, we need to move towards the body in the natural progression of the way that you were taught, which is typically through the brain.
Yeah.
So if you haven't done the cognitive work to understand what might be happening conceptually, what could be going on, identify, this is my story and I've looked at it before,
Mm-hmm.
jumping into the body work, doing this sensory experiencing stuff will feel like being thrown into the deep end of the pool and not knowing how to swim, which
Mm-hmm.
is really the experience of overwhelm that we typically have. And we can see that, when we look at the nervous system, our window of tolerance, when a feeling is too much, we come out of that window. And that can be what somatics is, because I am going to ask you to feel all the feelings. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't have the understanding of what that could be like, then it is going to be too much every time.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think it's such a beautiful way to describe that. I'm so on board, or yeah, on board with that, because I have the same thing, right? Because we know what the somatic work, the power that it holds, and we're almost like, oh, everybody could benefit from it. But I really can see the same, that people who have done at least some sort of work beforehand, talking, the cognitive awareness around it. They've done like the just like the classical therapy of like, okay, I'm gonna sit, I'm gonna talk, I'm gonna kind of like have a little bit of like a light bulb moments, in the sense that, oh, like this is the mess that I'm dealing with, and now I get to address them in the body. Because if we take like a super skeptical person who doesn't actually believe in the power of it, or who's not ready to give it a go, then it's kind of like, like pulling, like a closed can, and trying to open it, right? It's like it doesn't work. Like you have to have that willingness to go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say that like, oh, like I want to, but I don't know how. But it's no, like it's like, if you want to, the how will come. And it just, once again, like, find somebody that can be there as a guide, you know ask somebody to help you, maybe give some pointers how to start cleaning up that mess. It's not to say that you cannot do it on your own, but it's just so much like, it's like a time collapsing thing, right? You can do it on your own, but you don't necessarily have to. It's kind of like going to a gym, right?
Yeah.
You can do the home workouts. You can like kind of like go there and do your own thing, and just like, progress as you can and want. But if you feel ready and called to join a group workout, or take a personal trainer that can actually be there and say like, okay, here's what we're gonna do, and then like, um here's the pinpoint, or here's based on your previous experience and your body type, and all of that, all your goals, this is how we're gonna approach this. So
Absolutely. And being able to identify for yourself, how will I know when I'm ready?
mhm.
I think it really is for you and your facilitator to find that edge. I think sometimes I've met folks who've never been to classical therapy, but they did their homework. They read
Yes.
the books and they said, okay, I know it's going to be hard. I know it's going to be scary, but I am willing to sit in the discomfort because I know that that's what is needed. I
Mhm.
think that is really the edge, paired with resources. For me,
Yeah.
if you don't know what a resource is, you should learn that first. If you don't have any resources yet, you should build those first, because this experience is, I want to say, can be more intense because it is so sensory, and the sensory piece can feel so, like we said in the beginning, very ambiguous and amorphous. I can't see the sense. It's just happening inside of me. And that can really bring up, that fear of being out of control that as humans we all have.
Mm-hmm.
And the sense of, I don't understand and I don't know what's happening. Also, as humans, from a survival standpoint, is very triggering and scary.
Yeah.
So those are like my big criteria: cognitively understanding your story,
Mm-hmm.
establishing resources, and then using them. I have practice using them. For me, is like the golden ticket phrase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think we're gonna end with a question that is actually here in the comments that I glimpsed on. So there's a question that is addressed to: how often does someone think they are ready, but they're actually not, and how will a practitioner know whether the person is ready or not?
How often? I don't know if I have an exact number.
Mm.
I think because somatics is more on the like cutting edge, new aginess, um, more people want to try it. And I do see a large number of people wanting to try it, but then not staying, not actually being ready for this. And again, because it is hard. And hopefully your practitioner will be able to identify that again off of these concepts. Do you have resources? Can you identify your story? And really, can you tolerate a sensory based activity? For me, is the cue. If you can tolerate a body scan, okay, maybe you're a little more ready. Can you tolerate feeling the sadness in your chest? Okay, maybe you're a little more ready.
Mm-hmm.
And those are really the markers that I look for in
Yeah.
identifying if somebody is ready for this work or not.
Yeah. And I think like once the person, like at least is wants to believe that they're ready, it's about like, okay, maybe we have to just take it in a little bit of slower pace, just as you said, like let's
Yeah.
tune in, let's see what your body is capable of holding, and let's just take it in your pace. That's about what like doing this work trauma informed work, somatic work is all about. It's not about just like, oh, here's 10 steps, this is how you're supposed to
No.
do it. It's about, okay, like I'm actually here with you, let's figure this thing out. It's a journey, we're on it together. Like I might hold the map, but you're
Mm.
essentially the other person who says, okay, like this is how quickly I want to go, this is okay, this doesn't feel safe anymore, we're like, okay, let's take a pause, let's come
Yes.
back to the safety. And it, like, so
Yeah.
yeah. And it's just also like finding the person who you actually resonate with. Like
Yeah.
don't make yourself forced into,
No.
there's so many people, there's
Yeah.
something for everyone, so
Right.
feel really the person that you can feel safe with.
Yes. And I think there's a difference between what your brain wants to do, which is
Mm-hmm.
typically, well, I want to do it all right now.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
well, when can we start?
yeah.
Let's do 10 sessions a week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're no. But also it's really about listening to your body. And I often tell clients, I might know the tools and the steps, but I am actually following your body
Yeah.
in session. If you are coming in every day saying, okay, I did all the homework and I read all the books and I thought about all the things and you are going that fast in your speech, I'm actually going to make you slow down and stop.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening in your body as you talk
Mm-hmm.
about this right now? Wow, I feel really sweaty, really hot, and my heart is pounding. Oh, okay. So
Mm-hmm.
let's bring it down. Let's slow it down. And that going slow to your brain will often feel like I'm not doing it fast enough. I'm not really doing anything. I have had clients say, really, I've had clients after years even go, I don't really know how to explain to my friends what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
because it can feel very out there. This
Yeah.
isn't as cognitive as other approaches, and so it can feel really intangible. And so the tracking and the titrating of how fast we're going to go, what you really need in this moment, is
Yeah.
typically not necessarily what we think we need. And it's, again, learning the language of our body to hear what we need, not what we think is the right answer.
Yeah, yeah. And oftentimes, like, you know, even like when we're speaking out loud, oh, I'm just like sitting with my emotions, it sounds like so simplistic.
Yeah.
And it often is a very simple thing. That doesn't mean that it's an easy thing. And I so believe in the power of like you finding and tapping into that answer, tapping into that wisdom on your own, because us as practitioners, we might already see like, okay, like this is coming from this place, or oh, we're heading towards this one.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it takes like sessions and sessions for me to just like patiently hold that space for you until you're ready to tap into that, because it's going to be so much more profound when you realize and discover that, versus, you know, me giving you like the feeding you the answer of like, oh,
Yeah.
this is because of that, or we're heading towards this.
Yeah.
It's like, no, let's take it on your own pace, and it's going to land so much more deeply, and it's going to stick with you.
And often, if I give you the answer, this always cracks me up. Clients going, just tell me what to do. What is it about? What do you think is happening? I'll go, well, here's what I think it is. My favorite is when they go, no,
No,
that's not it.
I don't think
Okay,
so.
okay. Maybe you're right. Maybe it genuinely is not it. But 4 months later, 6 months later, 1 year later, ah, that is what it was. But and so it's not that you just need the answer. It's the difference between hearing it and knowing it. And that's what we
Exactly.
really are helping people do, is bring it from here down. I want you to know that. I want
Yeah.
you to find it, because that is really where it gets integrated. It gets woven into your knowing,
Mhm.
your truth,
Mhm.
instead of just something you one time read.
Yep.
And the piece around the facilitator that you choose, all of the research around different psychotherapies, different modalities of healing, really all come back to this idea that the most powerful intervention or tool that we as facilitators have is not in the modality that we're using, but rather in the relationship that we have with you. And
Yes.
so, even if somatics doesn't feel like your thing yet, even if you have found a somatic facilitator and they're all right, they're cool, but it's not the vibe, trust that. Go with that.
Yeah.
Because the biggest piece that, really is going to make the biggest difference is if you can look at that person and go, yeah, they get it. They do
Mhm.
get it. And
Mhm.
that feeling of understood and togetherness, that is what's going to change your life. Not
That's
the
healing.
not the thing I say, not the tools I use, not how I pace this. I mean, those will help.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
really, that sense of like, you get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just to end this is like, yeah, like to have that cognitive awareness dropping into embodied awareness. It's
Hmm.
kind of, you know, you have these moments where you're like, oh, I know it. Oh, I get it now. And
Yeah.
once it drops into the body, it stays with you. Like once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And it's so much
Yeah.
more profound, and it's so much more sustainable. It's here to, it's lasting.
Yeah.
And that's the power of it. Yeah. Oh my
Hmm.
God, I've been enjoying this chat
Ah, this was so
immensely.
fun.
If you guys tuning in, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for being interested in this work. It's literally like I'm telling my clients as well. It's like you doing the work on your own is healing the world, because
Yeah.
you are a ripple effect. And like you, like that beautiful spring analogy, that the
Hmm.
inner spring that you had, right? It is changing the world, because you are inspiring others around you. You are able to be a healthier container to people in your lives, and you are just like passing it on and sharing it with others. And if you have been enjoying this chat, then tomorrow both me and Stephanie, among other 20 beautiful, powerful, amazing women and souls, are um, speaking and participating in a free online summit event that is called Ignite and Liberate Your Inner Visionary. So you can find this information on both of our feeds and stories. So just go explore that. Click. It's free. You just sign up and you get this all these juicy interviews straight into your email and inbox, and you can just consume a little bit more of that goodness.
Absolutely. It's been
Yeah.
such a pleasure to be here to share, getting to resonate with other somatic facilitators. It's that feeling. You get
Is
it.
that juicy,
And
right?
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I've
absolutely.
been I've been enjoying it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for
Thank
thank you
you.
for energy, your message. Just the thing that you are bringing into this world. And I think it's such a beautiful platform
Mhm.
that we have for people to learn more about it and tune and then feel into it and then just gain more awareness around
Yeah,
it. So
absolutely.
thank you, everybody. Thank you, Stephanie, and enjoy your evening. And I will talk to you soon. I will see you around.
Great.
Bye, guys.